Welcome to Spiritual Healing and Psychotherapy. My name is Mary, or officially Dr. Mary Patricia Quinlivan, and this podcast is all about whole healing physically, emotionally, psychologically and spiritually. And we do that by being willing to see ourselves with gentle honesty and great compassion, and also by aligning with our inner spirit, our inner wisdom, and also the spirit within nature, Mother Earth. And as we align with this, we learn deeper love, deeper wisdom, and it brings blessing. It brings healing to us, to those around us, and Mother Earth. I've been a doctor for over 34 years, and you can look me up on my website, which is livingawarenesswa.com, and also my Facebook, Instagram and YouTube channel, which are all Living Awareness WA. So the heading for today's podcast is You Are Powerful. And the reason I want to talk about this is because it's something that is slowly dawning on me. And I would emphasise slowly, and I don't fully understand, or nowhere near fully understanding it, to be honest. But there's a recognition, or more recognition, of how powerful we all are. And most of us don't know it. And that's because we are the one essence. We are all at the source, this one divine, loving awareness. So we are one with Mother Earth, all of nature, all of the universe, in fact. The elements, the powerful elements you could think about, like the weather, the thunder, the lightning, the ocean in its vast power and beautiful serenity. So we are the same essence as all of this. Also, if you think of it in terms of the elements, earth, fire, water, air, what I'm coming to more is the fire within that I think I haven't previously owned as much as I could have. And what that's creating, which I'm pleased about, is a greater sense of safety, a sense that as I learn to align more with this divine essence, then that's immovable, that's unshiftable. That's always what I am. It was what I am before I was born. It was what I am when I die. It's unshakable. And so it brings, even though that is spirit, it's not this physical form, but knowing that that's always there and permanently there is bringing this greater sense of safety. So even if I get waylaid or I get caught in fear or I go off on some tangent, the nature of existence is that ultimately I'm going to find my way back to this divine essence, which is loving. And I've actually had some past life memories coming up. I'm aware that there's been some past lives that have been pretty challenging. One of them was I feel that I was in World War I in the trenches in Europe, and I died there. I got shot. And actually getting shot was a relief because it got me out of a situation that was completely horrific. And I know that in that situation that I both was killed, but also I would have killed others. So I was suffering, but the experience I had in this memory was the shift from that into perfect peace, being shot and being in perfect peace, divine love, and that in fact that essence was always there in the background. So it kind of, the memory, if you like, did make me quite real about the horrors of war, but it also made me realise that the truth of what we are never changes. And so it started to create this greater sense of safety and also a greater sense of freedom. And when I say freedom, I mean the freedom to be the authentic me. And, you know, that's been growing for years and years and years. And I know all of you that are listening to this, that is also something you are slowly and gently working on. But what, you know, was in the way when I was younger, and I have to say I'm not completely free of, but what was always in the way was, you know, wanting to belong, that need for approval, the need for acceptance in society. When I was much younger, the higher expectations, wanting to be seen to be good enough, you know, all that stuff, which of course then makes us want to be the person that others will like rather than just being authentic to ourselves. And also that sense that we have to be, you know, nice, sweet, presentable. And I'm not saying that it's not good to be a loving being. It's beautiful to be a loving being and to be a kind being. But we also have to be, you know, our fire self, you know, our true self, the one who's authentic. And it's not about not loving people, but it is about being true to ourselves in whatever that means. And you know, sometimes that does have rough edges, and sometimes we are angry or scared or jealous. And it's not that we take that out on anyone in particular, but that we can be free with it. We can see it. We can accept it. We can hold ourselves with love. And this freedom to be authentic, you know, it creates such a sense of joy. And just a little example of that recently, I've been swimming through winter, which I love, and it's taken me 57 years to do that. So I'm not going to judge any of you if you don't do that. But for years I've swum in the ocean and then given up for, you know, May, June, July, August probably. But this year I was determined, and it was from hearing a podcast, in fact, of a woman in Ireland who was talking about, and this is so true, you know, the cleansing powers of the ocean and how beautiful it is to immerse ourselves in the ocean as often as we can. And, you know, it builds resilience. It's just refreshing and beautiful. Anyway, I've been really enjoying that and going through winter. So I went down the beach this day, and the waves were, where I am, the waves are pretty big, and there wasn't a safe spot really to swim. But the waves were so big, they were washing up on the beach. And it was a weekend, and so there was quite a few people down the beach, and there was quite a big pool. I mean, it was probably only, you know, just above my ankles or a little bit deeper than that. But I was too scared to go in the ocean, so I decided I was just going to lie in this pool and swim and flap about and, you know, enjoy myself. And I did. And people were looking at me as though I was a bit odd. And I also floated, you know, just this I love, and I want to encourage all of you, you know, first of all, dive in the ocean and just release. I also dive under the waves and I scream and yell and thrash about and shake my body and just release whatever tensions or energies are in there, not even thinking about them, just letting them go. And then I float and I just feel that loving energy of the ocean. So anyway, I was floating in this little pool on the, you know, and getting washed about, the waves were coming in. But it was beautiful, and I remember thinking, you know, I wouldn't have done that 3 years ago just because I would have been worried about what people thought of me. And no, there's a delightful freedom. So I want to encourage all of you. And I'm not saying that I'm completely free from approval. I'm not. I would still rather be approved of. But this inner power, this inner fire, if you like, that we all have. We are vast. We are the multiverse. You know, we are this vast divine power. We are always loved and we are safe. So what the hell? You know, why not be who we're meant to be on this planet? And it's such a joyous expression. And, you know, others see it and think, oh, good, yeah, I'm going to do that too. So it's not that others judge us for being free or authentic. In fact, it sets others free as well. And another aspect of that, and it's from past life memories I've had, and even from this life, I've been aware of moments where I haven't stood up for myself because of it's that need to be approved of, to not have to face conflict, to not rock the boat. And when we're not standing up for our authenticity, we're not standing up for who we need to be, if someone's treating us disrespectfully or whatever, or we're giving away too much authority to others in terms of our decision making, it actually erodes our self-esteem. And this life I have very much grown in terms of I'm going to be who I know I need to be, and that is still growing. It is still something that I could get better at. But as I align more with this inner awareness and the vast connectedness and power of that, I also feel more safe in that regard, that it doesn't matter, that I can be my own authenticity. I can channel that power. I can allow it to come through me. And in fact, in owning that and doing that and being that, I am safer, because I'm not going to let people mess me about. Well, certainly a lot less than I did as a much younger person. And I think I mentioned in a previous podcast, there's a lady called Courtney Beck who is a very clear channel, and she channels some beautiful divine beings. And I was listening to a talk. I can't remember whether I've talked about this before or not, but I'm going to talk about it again because it's so good. I was listening to a talk from Hecate, who's a white witch who I adore. And she talked about that and this is not a direct quote. I'm not reading it because I couldn't find it again, actually, but she talked about that humans need to be more, and you have to excuse the swearing, humans need to be more non-fuckable with. And I thought that was brilliant. In fact, I don't know whether she said non-fuckable with or unfuckable with, but the meaning is the same. And that is, it's time to say no, to stand up for ourselves, to own our power, to own our authenticity, and to stand in that. And you know what? As we stand in that, we are going to be less at risk, because people will feel it. People will feel the degree to which we are safe to be true to ourselves, safe to channel this actual power that we are. And I want to say, and I've been aware of this, and probably there's more for me to learn about this too, and that this power is not an ego-based thing. There is nothing authoritarian about it. There is nothing judgmental in it. In fact, it can have great gentility and great love. In fact, it is loving. And I remember hearing Isira talk about that it's very important when we're learning first to feel that power, the power of consciousness, the power of our authentic self, that we have to really ground it. And in fact, she used the term, and I really loved it, she used the term grounded potency. And what she meant by that was, it's not about going on an ego trip with power in sense of, projecting our own fear or pain out on other people, or using anger inappropriately, or what I mentioned before. It's not about being authoritarian. It's not about aggressiveness. It's not about any form of judgment. And those of you that have been in situations with young children or your own children, or in certain situations, you would know that real grounded potency, real firmness can be necessary and required. And if it is grounded in that essence of divine love, it is still loving. It is not a non-loving act to be powerful and potent and to own our authenticity, if it is done from awareness. And so this dawning recognition, and I must admit, when I first had some various past life memories that were pretty challenging, and it certainly is my sense and my learning that all of us have had thousands of past lives probably, and we've all had experiences that are very challenging. And to be honest, most of us have done good things and bad things in our past life from our own fear or pain or unworthiness as well. And all of it needs to be completely forgiven and completely accepted. But I did feel a bit wobbly when I had some of these past life memories, and it brought up some fear initially. But in the process of integrating those memories, I started to feel more this sense of power and greater authenticity that I have now. And it did bring about a much greater sense of safety as I own that, and as I am true to myself and I don't put up with disrespect from others or being treated badly, then in fact there's greater safety in that. And also what I said before, that feeling that I had from that past life memory in a war zone of, in fact, the shift into transition was beautiful. It wasn't anything bad at all. In fact, it was profoundly beautiful. So really, is there anything to be scared of when we know that the state of pure consciousness, the divine peace of God, if you like, is always there. It's never going to change. Another aspect of that, as I deepen in this process of resting in spirit, you could say, I am more aware of spirit beings who have made their transition. And just recently, and it makes me a bit emotional, but I've been a bit aware of my grandma who died many years ago. And we had this beautiful experience, actually. We had to redo my mother's will recently, and it was quite a lot of effort, a bit of a long haul, you could say, because Mum's 92 and it meant seeing doctors and getting approval that, she was capable of doing it, and seeing lawyers and all that stuff. And anyway, we were signing the will once it was finally done, and Mum realised as she signed it that it was being signed on Grandma's birthday, so Grandma being her mother. And that was just a beautiful moment, and I knew that Grandma was there. And another experience which I'll share is that my 92-year-old mum had a healing with this lady, Courtney Beck, who, like I said, channels beings. And at that healing, there was a horse, and we couldn't really work out why there was a horse at the healing. And I realised when Mum said, a few weeks later, Mum said, Grandma loved horses and she used to take me to the races. And I said, oh, Mum, that's it. That was Grandma telling us that she was there at that healing. And the most beautiful thing is that Mum's 92, and I know she doesn't have, she's not going to be with us forever. But I know that Grandma's going to be there to welcome her into divine love when she does make her transition. And just feeling that presence of Grandma and knowing the beautiful essence that she's resting in. And Grandma actually, and this, I'm sharing this not because I haven't forgiven her, because I have, but Grandma in her life was not someone that I was close to or connected to. She'd had a very challenging childhood, and I think you could say struggled with the consequences of that in her adult life. And so we certainly weren't close. And so I want to let you all know that you may have relatives that in their life here in this experience, planet Earth, you may not have been close to them, but once they make their transition and they're resting in their higher self, it's a totally different kettle of fish. So they may well be willing to be available to you and to help you. And I've been really blessed to know that Grandma's around for me and for my mum. But that has also taught me that it's beautiful to be in spirit. It's not a bad thing. So none of us really have anything to be scared about. If the worst thing we could be scared of is dying, and we know that dying ends up being beautiful, then what the hell? We might as well start enjoying ourselves and be authentic. Because our greatest fear, which is dying or making our transition, really doesn't need to be a fear at all. It's a beautiful transition into resting in God. And the other greatest fear that we all have, which is not belonging or our feeling of not being approved of, and really ultimately it's about approving of ourselves and loving ourselves. And the more we are authentic, the more we will connect to that inner spirit, and the more we will connect to the earth, the trees, the stars, our ancestors, and also to other beings who are on the path with us. So there isn't really a risk about being authentic. In fact, I promise you, you will end up belonging. There will be transition, and I have had many times where I guess this healing journey has made for lonely moments, because in the process of withdrawing from, I guess, old circles of friends that perhaps weren't in alignment with who we needed to be anymore, or in creating the space to be alone so I could learn to feel spirit clearly. There are lonely moments, that's a reality, or lonely in the sense of being on this planet. But there's not loneliness in the sense of there's a deeper connection to spirit, and there's always beings available in spirit, our guides, our angels, Mother Earth herself, the trees, to support us. And we will find beings on this earth as well. And I just want to say, while I think about it, thank you to my grandma who is making her presence felt. And it's been beautiful to get to know her a little more, even if I'm not totally clear yet about what I'm hearing or feeling. But and that's what will happen to all of you as we sink more deeply in this space. You will be aware of what's beneath the veil, of it's only transition out of form, but the essence of what we are, of what we are already, and those beings resting in spirit are, is already here, already with us. But there's a greater awareness of it. So that's a beautiful thing. And another thing I want to mention, and again, it came from Hecate, and she talks about roaring our authenticity, our tendency to want to, not be judged in the world and to make sure we're approved of. So we don't want to truly express ourselves, especially if, what we're expressing could be a bit wayward or a bit different or a bit unusual. And I'm not saying that sometimes there's wisdom in keeping some things to ourselves. And I think you would all understand that. There are experiences you want to share as part of your authenticity, and experiences that are just for you and your own learning. But the parts of us that are learning and growing and, embracing things that we know are wholesome for others to hear, then it is okay to share that stuff and be authentic and be open. And in fact, to, as Hecate says, roar. And I just want to share an experience that's completely different. But years ago, when I was a fifth-year medical student, I worked in Kenya in a hospital for a couple of months. It was a very good experience. And we went to game parks afterwards, me and two other friends from my year of medicine in Tanzania went to a game park, Ngorongoro Crater, for any of you that know that one. And this one night we had to camp in a camping area where you were meant to camp, but some lions had made a kill not far from the campsite, like, I'm not good with distances, but probably only 75, 100 metres from the campsite, not far at all. And the campsite was full when we got there. We got there quite late at night, so we had to camp right at the edge, and we were the closest tent to this pride of lions that had made a kill. And the guide and one of my mates decided they were going to sleep in the car for this reason. And me and my other friend, Michael, we had to share the tent because there was no room in the car. And that night, probably one of the scariest scariest moments I've ever had. And it was in the middle of the night, and we heard a lion breathing and walking around our tent. And I've never been, I can still feel that my hair's rising as I talk about it. And we both just lay there completely terrified, too scared to breathe, not making a sound. And it was probably half an hour later that one of us said, "Is it gone?" and it had gone, thank God. And we didn't get eaten alive, but it was a terrifying moment. But anyway, during that night, one of the lions roared, and not far away from us. And I still remember the power of that roar. It was earthbound. It was what Isaiah would call grounded potency in its utmost form. It was powerful, connected to the earth. Everything was in it. And so when I heard Hecate talking about this experience came back to me, and I thought, yeah, that is unfiltered, unfettered power, but it's grounded, it's true, it's authentic, it just is what that lion was, and no one was going to go near that, I can tell you. So if all of us learn to be that grounded potency, as Isaiah says, to be connected in our authenticity, we are not going to be fuckable with, as Hecate would say. So I guess that's what I'm wanting to communicate here is you are this power, you are this same vast essence. And if we have fears, we can accept them, not judge them. All clients I see, and myself included, we have fears both from this life where we may have been criticised or put down or not loved as a child, or previous lives perhaps where we've been persecuted in various circumstances or because of our beliefs. And those experiences can then create in us a desire to have to walk on eggshells and be perfect and not be authentic, and because we want to be approved of, we don't want to not belong, we don't want to risk our safety, if you like. But that then limits our self-esteem because we're not being true to ourselves, and it limits the channeling of this power. And when we realise anyway that we are ultimately totally safe, we are always going to be this divine love, and there is this beautiful authenticity that we can start to channel that in fact will make us safer, then it starts to become easier to be this authentic, free being. And what will definitely help you with that is, well, the meditation, the breathing, when fear does come up, to see it with compassion and acceptance, but also to connect, and that is to connect to nature, to the divine essence of Mother Earth beneath you, the immense power that she is, to the ocean, the trees, and the stars above. And that will start to help you to feel and experience the vast presence that you are and the vast power that you have, which does help in us moving beyond things like anxiety or, the desire to please others or the need to be perfect. So I really want to encourage you all, connect, be your authentic self. And sometimes being your authentic self, well, it's hard when you first start because, there is that fear that maybe I'll disappoint people if I say no, or maybe people will be surprised, and yeah, that might happen. But on the whole, I promise you, mostly people will respect you. And in fact, they won't mess with you anymore. And it's a much greater sense of freedom. And us doing that will heal those around us. Sometimes the only way, or often the only way, we can help to heal others is by setting the example. And not only that, but this is what the earth needs now. It needs us to be true to what she is channeling into us, or my sense of her divine essence, and that being expressed through us. We are here to be authentic. We are here to be whatever it is we are here to be. And every single one of us does have a part to play in this healing of the earth and all the beings on earth. And the more authentic we can be, and the more we can, as Hecate says, roar that authenticity, or have, as Isira says, grounded potency, then the more we can heal and Mother Earth can heal. And the more it will also be a beautifully joyous and freeing experience. And I just want to add, given that this has been a dawning and growing awareness in me, I am bringing it in more into my therapeutic sessions and also my healing sessions. So in the healing, there will be a releasing of fears, but also an awakening of this vast, beautiful power that we all have. So you're welcome to contact me and come along. I think that's enough for today. Thank you for being with me. It's been an absolute pleasure to share with you. And as always, I'd love you to share this podcast with friends or family or anyone you think may be interested. And don't forget to check me out on livingawarenesswa.com and all my other pages, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Living Awareness WA. And I highly recommend Isira, and her website is isira.com. Much love to you all.